Before proceeding with the formal business of the meeting, I would ask Rabbi Shwai to lead us in prayer.
By reading one of the most important prayers of the Jewish religion, the Prayer of Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And those words which I command you today shall be upon your heart. You shall teach them thoroughly to your children, and you should speak of them when you sit down in your house and when you walk on the road, when you lie down and when you rise. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. I would like to continue with a prayer for the success of tonight's meeting. Heavenly Father, I stand in the midst of this meeting to pray humbly and hopefully before you to grant us your gracious help so that we have the will and the understanding to walk firmly in your ways all the days of our lives. Implant in us the spirit and sincere devotion to your service, that we may hold fast to what is just and good and resist all evil and sinful temptations. May bodily strength, mental power, and moral courage be developed in us, that we may fulfill our duties to you with reverence, knowledge, and love, as well as our duties to our neighbors with sympathy and courtesy. Today we serve the community as the ones worthy to be counted for public service and to assume its full responsibilities. Help us, O merciful Father, to be known as faithful and honest. I'll conclude with a prayer that we usually recite for the royal family. May the Supreme King of Kings in his mercy preserve the Queen in life, guard and deliver her from all trouble and sorrow. May he put a spirit of wisdom and understanding into her heart, and into the hearts of all the counselors, that they may uphold the peace of the realm, advance the welfare of the nation, and deal kindly and justly with all of us. In her days and in ours, may Heavenly Father spread the tabernacle of peace over all the dwellers on earth. And let us say, Amen. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Council. Before we begin, would members please sit in their own seats, silence their mobile phones, stand up when proposing or seconding the item. Please switch microphones on to speak and off immediately afterward. If there is an emergency, turn left out of the chamber, follow the green emergency exit sign to the main town hall entrance and assemble in St. George's Square. This meeting is being live streamed to the public. Any member of the public present are entitled to take photographs, film, audio record or report on all public meetings in accordance with the openness of local government. Government Bodies Regulation 2014, people may not, however, act in any way considered to be disruptive or may have to be asked to leave. At its meeting held on 28th of September 2021, Council resolved to invite His Honored Judge Mark Bishop to become the Council's honorary recorder. It's my great pleasure to invite the Judge Bishop to address this Council meeting, and it's not often that you stand for other people So it's probably the first time you did. So normally it's us we'd stand for you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, councillors, could I begin by saying, first of all, this is on the microphone. There we are. Could I begin by saying what a great privilege it is to have been appointed the Honorary Recorder for Luton. I regard it as a very important part of my job as the resident judge at Luton Crown Court, that there should be good links, good communication between the Crown Court, which is playing a role in the life of this city, this town, a very important role, and all of you who are also playing a very important role. I think it's very important for any community that the court, the judiciary, are in good communication with those who are elected to represent the people of that place. Now, Luton Crown Court has 6 courts. We have at the moment got 5 permanent judges. We're 1 down because somebody retired and we've yet to be given a replacement, so I'm banging on the door of the appropriate authorities to get an extra judge because we need as many judges as possible. And we're supplemented in the work that we do by having quite a lot of part-time judges, who are known as recorders as well, who are in practice at the bar or as solicitors who are authorised to sit part-time as judges. And without them, we would not be able to get through the work that we have to do at the moment. I think you would like to know, I'm sure, how we responded to the pandemic, which was, of course, such a crisis for so many parts of our society. First of all, Luton Crown Court did not close. We remained open throughout. We had to suspend jury trials from March 20 to July 20, so no jury trials, and then they only resumed at a very low rate for the most serious cases because we had to reduce the number of jurors that we could have in the building. Social distancing made it very difficult. But we kept going, and we were up to 4 jury trials even through January this year when we had a very difficult period. And we're now back up to 6 jury trials in the main building most days. And that, I think, I'd like to pay tribute to the staff at Luton Crown Court who have been remarkable, I think, in their commitment to ensuring that the public service of the maintenance of a criminal justice system, upon which we all depend, continues. Without the staff, we would not have been able to do that. You can have the judges, you can have the courts, you can have the lawyers. If you haven't got the court staff there, the court cannot function. So I pay tribute to them. We had during the lockdown, during the pandemic, we had access to a Nightingale court up in the precincts of Peterborough Cathedral, and we did a number of big health and safety cases up there, which got a certain amount of coverage here. We did those. I did those up in that court near Peterborough Cathedral, and we also have access to a court at Huntingdon Crown Court. 1 court there, and I'm hoping we're going to get access to the old Bedford Magistrates Court, which will be brought back into use to enable us to sit there at least 1 court. And I think we're being allowed to get access to 1 court in Luton Magistrates as well. So we are trying to get on as many cases as we possibly can. But you'll want to know how many cases we have to get through. If I can let you know, in February 20, so just before the lockdown began, we had 500 cases on our books, so 500 from the Magistrates Court to the Crown Court, 500 cases to get through, and you have six months to get a custody case on. So that was probably a bit higher than we would want anyway, but 500 anyway, that was where it was before the lockdown. And this month, we are 722 backlog, so an increase of 43%. So enormous pressure on the courts to get through the backlog. And we have many, many custody cases, I regret to say, to get through here at Luton. And that inevitably means, given that we have custody time limits of 6 months, where we have to get a custody case on within 6 months, it means bail cases are being pushed back further and further. And of course, many cases where sexual offences are alleged, many defendants are on bail for those matters. And so that's very troubling, because those are the cases that one wants to get tried as soon as possible. And so there is a tension that we are having to resolve, prioritising cases, trying to get as many cases into court as possible, trying to bring on the cases that we think will plead guilty or be short and we can get out of our lists. We're trying to get through as many of these cases as we possibly can. The biggest constraint, to be frank, on our work is the lack of judges, the lack of recorders. That's the part-time lawyers who are authorised to sit as judges. There is a desperate shortage of those at the moment. And criminal lawyers, the criminal barristers and solicitors. There's been a reduction over the last few years in the numbers involved in criminal law, I'm afraid, through problems with criminal legal aid. And so that when we need lawyers to get through these cases, and we need judges to get through these cases, we are under pressure, and there are additional problems for us in that regard. But could I just, in closing, just say this, that the criminal justice system is part of the public sector. It's a part of the public sector that is quite hidden, I think, quite a lot of the time. People talk about hospitals, people talk about schools, we all know what they're like. We go in there, we use them, our children are there. But not many people come into a Crown Court, even fewer people go into a prison. It's another very important part of the public sector. But this is something that I would welcome much more public access to the Crown Court. I would welcome, Mr. Mayor, your visit to the Crown Court if you'd like to come. Indeed, any councillor who'd like to visit us, I'd be delighted to welcome you. And I think we need to do more in ensuring that people understand what goes on in the Crown Court, because the rule of law is the basis upon which our society is constructed, our democracy is constructed. If we don't have the rule of law, really we have nothing. So we're all in it together, to use a phrase. We're all supporting that principle. And I'm delighted to be able to share this with you and say that together we are seeking to serve the people of Luton in this way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for attending the council meeting this evening, Judge Bishop. We look forward to working with you in the future. You're most welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but feel free if you wish to leave. And we will take up your invitation to the court. I did used to sit there, so yes, so I have a little bit of experience, but I'll encourage my colleagues to do visit it, so that to see how the justice in terms of that. Yeah, thank you. Right, the first item of the business is to receive the minutes of the meeting of the councils held on 28th of September 2021 as set out in pages 5 to 7. Subject to the inclusion of Councillor Donald's apology, does the council approve the minutes and agree to the signing them as a correct record? Apologies for absence.
Mr Mayor, I've received apologies from Councillors Ackley, Idris, Akbar, Godding, Nichols, Wahid and Campbell.
Members, please note that voting will be by exception. With the exception of notice of motion, rather than calling out each member to name to record their vote, I'll ask members to indicate if they wish to vote against the motion. If no member votes against, I will declare the item to be carried. The outcome will not be recorded in the minutes unless 6 members of the council indicate that they wish for this to happen, in accordance with the Standing Order 20.2. I would like to welcome Councillor Fatma Begum to our first meeting of the Council following our election to the South Ward on 28th of October. Welcome back to Councillor Skeppelhorn. Good to see you, Alan. Please note that I propose to take immediately after agenda item 12.2 an item of urgent business in accordance with the section 10(0)(b) of the Local Government Act 1972 on the moving of resolution on fossil fuel investment. This item was circulated to members by email prior to the meeting. Please also note that I'll be disclosing an interest in this matter and will be leaving the meeting after 12.2. The Deputy Mayor will take the chair for that item. I would like to remind the members that I'm holding a Mayor Tropical Christmas dinner on Friday, the 17th of December 2021 at 6:30 for 7 p.m. start at the Auction House, Crescent Road. The tickets are £45 per person or £350 per table for 8, and 3-course dinner entertainment by live band for Dukes of Earl. I'd encourage members to at least buy a ticket, if not a table, and I'll also encourage the Chief Executive and all the senior officers to also buy the ticket or a table. This was a protocol since when I first got on the council. Every senior officer at least made a donation or attended the mayor's charity. So I would expect that, and I will like that to be minuted, because I will be announcing what the donations that the senior officers have made to the mayor's charities. Thank you. All members have been circulated. No, sorry. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, all members of the Council have been circulated with a list of the items before the Council this evening which fall within the ambit of Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992. Any member affected should disclose the fact and refrain from voting on any question relating to those items. Mr. Mayor, no Section 106 disclosures have been received for this evening. However, Mr. Mayor, I have received the following disclosures of interest. In relation to the urgent agenda item 12.3, resolution on fossil fuel investments in local government pension schemes, I've had a pecuniary interest by yourself, Mr. Mayor, in that your wife is a recipient of a local government pension. And I've also had a pecuniary interest by Councillor Hazel Simmons as a recipient of a local government pension also. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to declare an interest there. My mother still gets a pension from my father on the Bedfordshire County Council pension scheme.
Mr. Mayor, I'll record Councillor Keane's interest and obviously, Councillor Keynes, if you could remove yourself up for that item.
I get a very small pension through working in adult education.
Likewise, Councillor Moss, thank you.
And I currently work at a school. And so, although I'm not a pensioner, I will receive a local government pension. You hope. I hope.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Yeah. Any other member, please, because it's very important that you do. If you work for local government and you are beneficiary of a pension even in the future, even if you're not receiving it, yes? You need to declare it if you can think of, at this stage. I call upon Councillor Peter Chapman to please ask the question of Councillor Abbas Hussain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. What action is the council taking to ensure Section 61 notices are used to remove local traveller encampments on the day of arrival?
Councillor Abbas.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Peter. Section 61, Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994 is a police power. It allows senior police officers to move travellers on immediately, but only if there are more than 6 vehicles and those persons present have caused damage to land or used threatening, abusive or insulting words of behaviour. Most traveller encampments do not meet this criteria for the police to use the powers, but if the police do use this section, they can arrest anyone who fails to comply. The maximum sentence or the non-compliance is a fine or up to 3 months imprisonment. The legislation does not allow council officers to be authorised to use Section 61, and it is a police power only. Does it answer your question, Councillor Peter Chapman?
Supplementary. Yeah. How many face-to-face meetings has the portfolio holder held with the PCC to discuss the implementation of Section 21 orders as standard practice? How many meetings have you held face-to-face?
With the PCC? None, but there is a meeting planned on the 22nd of November where Councillor Franks will be on that meeting as well, around about 10 o'clock.
Supplementary. Does the portfolio holder feel it's applicable that meetings should be held with the PCC during daytime when many councillors who have to hold down a job would not be able to participate in that meeting? And I did want to know what specifically, as a working together, you and the PCC were going to do to discuss the implementation of Section 21 orders as standard.
I think the meeting was arranged by the PCC's office, and those were the times that were given during the day. But as I alluded to the email, that I was not available on the 22nd, but was available down a month later at a later time in the evening, but it was rejected that the meeting had to be held during the day by the PCC's office. But I think that's a question for the PCC to answer, not myself. On the basis what communications we have with the PCC, we do have communications with the Bedfordshire Police, who are key partners in this process, and we are constantly in communication with them.
Supplementary. Does the portfolio holder feel that Section 21 notices should be standard practice for the removal of travellers in Luton, from Luton encampments?
You mean Section 61 or 21?
61.
Again, it is a power that is given by the police, for the police to enforce. But I am in favour of those powers if they can enforce them as a portfolio holder.
So, does the portfolio holder intend to have a direct meeting, one-to-one, to state that this council believes that Section 61 notices should be standard practice, and to put in place pressure, consistent pressure, time after time, every time this is not standard practice?
Okay, so I will have a group meeting with the PCC next Monday, and I can confirm that I will have a one-to-one meeting with the PCC, if he likes, regarding what you have said just now.
And supplementary, is the portfolio holder happy with the way that traveller encampments or travellers violating our lands for encampments is being handled at the present time?
Okay, so I sympathise with all the residents of Luton who are affected by these encampments, but I can assure you, Councillor Chapman, that the process that we take is robust and is done instantly as soon as we are notified, and I can assure you on that.
Could I ask a supplementary? Quick comment, that isn't the case because it's not happening. But anyway, who does the portfolio holder think that my local constituent who had to cancel their holiday when travellers, a large traveller encampment was parked behind the fence and travellers started knocking on doors in a threatening way looking for work, should apply for compensation? Who do you think they should apply for compensation?
Okay, so I can't really go into the circumstances of this individual resident because I wasn't aware of this. But as I said, if there was a legal basis or a process, that 61, if the police thought necessary for Section 61 to be enforced, it would have been done. If not, then obviously we start our legal process as well, which takes roughly about 7 to 10 days, which is a judicial process as well. We have to get a court order.
And finally, has the portfolio holder complained at the lack of Section 21 notices? 21. I'm thinking about something else. Sorry, lack of Section 61 notices being enforced for encampments on Luton parks. Does the portfolio holder intend to implement or to complain to the PCC at the lack of Section 61 orders for encampments throughout Luton during the last year?
Yes, I intend to.
Okay,
thank you.
And that will be in writing. Okay, thanks. We'll follow that. Thank you.
Right, I call upon Councillor Chowdhury to present the annual report of the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Authority as set out on the pages 8 to 43 on the Fire Authority record of decision set out in 42 to 43. Councillor Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Annual Report for 2021, set out page number 8 till 41, and I also like to present the meeting of the 7th of September 2021. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Ms. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Does the council receive the report? Yes. Thank you. With regard to the agenda item 7, there are no written questions this evening for the Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Authority. Therefore, no vote is required. Next item of the agenda is 8.1, Treasury Management Annual Report. I invite Councillor Malcolm to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the report for the last financial year, so the year 2021, in terms of our treasury management and all of our investments and all of our borrowing is what's covered by the report. It also includes our management of our cash flow for purposes of making payments and things like that. I'm pleased to report that we remained within all of our prudential limits, which is set out within the report within the year. The table at paragraph 8 shows that in terms of what we were expecting to spend and what we ended up spending, we were slightly below that, and that was broadly because we were in the pandemic, so some things got scheduled back but have been rescheduled into this financial year for 2021-22. That includes the temporary accommodation purchasing scheme, which is really important for getting more control of the difficulties we face when responding to housing in our town. At paragraph 23, it sets out how we will act if there is deflation or inflation, and actually paragraph 26 sets out a table of our expected interest rates from our advisors, who I think are Arling Close. We've long had a history, a policy of maximising our internal borrowing in terms of any use of reserves other than for cash flow purposes, which actually nets us a much higher rate of return than we would get if we officially invested our balances elsewhere. Although paragraph 36 does set out some in-year investments, but that is mostly of our cash flow balances because we need to keep them liquid, or liquid if, as and when we need them. Paragraph 28 sets out our in-year borrowing, and there was £84 million of in-year borrowing, which was in line with the council-approved projects for the year. And paragraph 14 outlines the MRP, or minimum revenue provision, for the year, which was 9.3 million, just over, which pays down over time the council's overall level of indebtedness. With that, Mr. Mayor, I will move the report. Move the recommendation set out in paragraph 2 on page 44. Thanks.
Is the motion seconded? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak to the motion? Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we should thank Councillor Malcolm for this report because it gives a huge amount of very useful information. But I'm a little confused over the total indebtedness. The bottom of page 45 suggests that the borrowings for the general fund amount to about £111 million. On page 54, in the middle of the page, we're told that the total debt is £475 million. I think there are two questions, really. What is the true figure? And I guess these are all at 31st of March 2021. What is the true indebtedness figure at that date? And does it include the internal borrowings where the council, very sensibly, I might say, uses reserves rather than borrowing externally?
It won't include internal borrowing. It will be the 475 or whatever the figure from that table that you quoted. The earlier table is the borrowing in the year, I believe. If any of that's incorrect, I'm sure Dev can correct us and I can get you an email.
Okay, any further questions? No? Are there any amendments? Does any other member wish to speak on it? The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? Motion is carried. Next item of agenda is item 9.1, Statement of Gambling and Licensing Policy. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We agreed a policy which took effect in January 2019, and this has been revised recently and will run from 2022 to 2025. It includes some practical changes that have been made to the original policy, and they're outlined in paragraph 4 of the report before you. I think that probably is as much as I wish to say on this, Mr. Mayor. The report is very easy for you to understand what the changes that have been made. So I move the recommendation. I ask Council to agree it.
Is the motion seconded? Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak on the motion? No? The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? Motion is carried. Next item of the agenda is 10.1, Amendment to Part 19 of the Council's Constitution, revision to the Council's senior management structure. I call upon Councillor Simon to move the recommendation.
The report before you is an amendment to the Council's Constitution and is easily explained looking at the recommendations that are approved by the Admin and Regulation Committee. So Council is being asked to support those recommendations and to agree to the monitoring officer to make the necessary arrangements to our Constitution. So I move.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak on the motion? The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? The motion is carried. Next item of the agenda is 10.2, review of the political balance following the South by-election. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Labour retain the seat in the South by-election, and congratulations to Fatima this evening, there was no change to the allocation of seats to political groups on the council.
Is the motion seconded? Seconded, Mr Mayor. Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak on the motion? The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? The motion is carried. Next item of agenda is 11.1, appointment to the Scrutiny Finance Review Group. I call upon Councillor Simmons to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendation is for Councillor Mahmood Hussain to be appointed to the Scrutiny Finance Review Group with immediate effect, and for Fatima Begum, our new councillor, to be appointed to the various committees that are outlined in that report. I move.
Is the motion seconded? Second, Mr. Mayor. Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak on the motion? The motion is before the council. Does any member vote against the proposal? The motion is carried. The next item of the business is to notice of the motion set out in the agenda item 12.1. I call upon Councillor K. Mullett to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like the Council to record its support for the UK's annual National Emergency Services Day, which is held on the 9th of September and which is supported by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and that this Council places on record its sincere appreciation for the 2 million people who work and volunteer in the NHS and emergency services today. That this Council agrees to fly the official flag of the Emergency Services Day above the Town Hall on the 9th of September each year to mark 999 Day. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Is the motion seconded?
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Yes, Councillor Scaffron.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't suppose anybody would be surprised to say that this has a very great place in my heart. I'm here because of the emergency services, the hospital services, the doctors, nurses, ancillary workers that saved my life and put me back together again after my brush with COVID. Personal thanks to everybody in this chamber and council who sent me messages of support and were in their prayers and thoughts, and just would like to thank specifically the medical team at James Paget Hospital, particularly the ICU team, but in two particular people who got me walking again, talking again, and eating again, two physiotherapists from the ICU, Kat and Timmy, and I will support this motion fully. Thank you.
Any other member wish to speak? Yes, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I wholeheartedly support this motion. I think it's long overdue, and I think the NHS, the 99 are the real unsung heroes, and I think it's wonderful that we'll be able to recognise them for what they are, the heroes.
Any other member? No. The motion is before the council. Member be asked to cast their vote individually. So I'll ask the Chief Executive, please.
Councillor Bid.
Agree.
Councillor Idris.
Absent.
Councillor Ahmed. 4. Councillor Ali. A. Ali. 4. Councillor U. Ali.
4.
Councillor Begum.
4.
Councillor Bridgen. 4. Councillor D. Chapman.
4.
Councillor P. Chapman. 4. Councillor Chowdhury.
4.
Councillor Donnellan.
4.
Councillor Franks.
4.
Councillor A. Hussain.
4.
Councillor J. Hussain.
4.
Councillor J. I. Hussain.
4.
Councillor M. Hussain.
4.
Councillor S. Hussain.
4.
Councillor Javid.
4.
Councillor Keynes. 4. Councillor Khan. 4. Councillor Kershid.
4.
Councillor Lovell. 4. Councillor Malcolm.
4.
Councillor K. Malik.
4.
Councillor T. Malik. 4. Councillor Masood.
4.
Councillor Mead. 4. Councillor Moles.
4.
Councillor Moore.
4.
Councillor Pedersen.
4.
Councillor Petts. 4. Councillor Roche.
4.
Councillor S. Salim.
4.
Councillor T. Salim.
4.
Councillor Shaw.
4.
Councillor Simmons.
4.
Councillor Skeppelhorn.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Underwood.
4.
Councillor Wynne.
4.
Councillor Young.
4.
Unanimous.
Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. The next item of business is notice of a motion on agenda item 12.2. I call upon Councillor Franks to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps I should explain that we've been driven to move this motion by the constantly increasing numbers of residents who are telling us that they never visit the town centre, and by the fact that it is becoming more and more difficult every day to defend the town centre against their arguments. It really is. Yes, the town centre master plan did receive all-party support, and so did a good many other major projects that are planned for the town centre. But they're long-term projects. The council said in a statement, improving our town centre is a priority for us and for residents. Well, you're not very good at it, are you? That's the problem. We were told in a press statement, the progress made already shows our plan is credible and sets a platform for further investment and development. What progress? Haven't seen any progress. Street drinking and begging, the council statement says, are complex social issues which require a comprehensive and joined-up approach from services across the town. So why aren't they getting it? The council statement goes on. We extended the Public Spaces Protection Order for a further 3 years, including beyond the area previously covered. Well, what did you do? You actually extended it to include Manor Road, which should have been included in the first place. We never understood why it was excluded, and there was never a good reason for it to be excluded. 100 fixed penalty notices has been issued, you say. Well, how many have been paid? How do you expect people already pretty low in self-esteem and income to pay fixed penalty notices? Not very likely, is it? Criminal behaviour orders and injunctions have also been served. They didn't work either, did they? I just don't know where to go from here. Another bit of the council statement, a recent breach of an order saw a subject receive a 16-week custodial sentence. Well, what do you think that person's going to do when they come out of jail? They're going to go back to doing exactly the same thing they did before. We'd be much more interested in learning how many people have been helped to put their lives back together by the very active and successful organisations dedicated to doing just that. That's what we'd really like to hear. These grand schemes of yours are vital for the long-term future of the town centre. And town centres all over the place are having to reinvent themselves, chiefly to counter the retail revolution that's come upon us through buying online and all that sort of stuff. Successful town centres will probably offer more entertainment, more restaurants, more bars, leisure offerings. Can you just picture how successful such attractions are going to be in Luton Town Centre when the town centre is still full of antisocial behaviour, with pavements covered in grease from the cheap hot food takeaways that take up nearly all the shops in the town? 100 fixed penalty notices, criminal behaviour. No. Come on. You know who the people are that can help these guys to get their lives back together. You know who they are, and you know how successful they can be. What are you going to do about it?
Is the motion seconded? Councillor Shaw. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Are there any amendments? Question? Yes.
Chair, I'm not sure it's a question.
Can you stand up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure it's a question as such, but just a general observation. It is a complex area of homelessness. From my work, I see a lot of it, particularly in central London. There are people with mental health issues that are homeless and begging. So there are extremes of it, and there are those obviously taking opportunity of begging for the wrong reasons. But I think there's more of a complex issue than a simple solution. And I think in particularly mental health issues, the help isn't there in many cases. And I think the law does not really adequately help address these issues as well. Even if you've been possibly, from my lack of knowledge, or even if you've been diagnosed mentally with mental health issues, still it's very difficult for agencies to help them unless you can get them in front of a doctor, basically. So I think it's a very complex issue.
Can I interrupt you?
Yep.
You need to be asking a question. You can speak and make a statement afterwards, but this is question I asked. Is there a question you want to ask?
The question is, Chair, it was more of a comment, but the question is, I think this motion just generalizes everything. I think my question is if it should have been more specified. Thank you.
I'm not sure that I'm expected to respond to that question, Mr. Mayor, because I'm not even sure who it's addressed to or where it's supposed to be going. But in proposing a motion for debate at full council, the last thing we wanted to do was to get into enormous small print detail and explaining which organisations do what and trying to apportion blame between the NHS mental health services and the various voluntary organisations in the council. The fact is, the joined up working isn't working, and that's what we attempted to point out in the motion.
Thank you. Right. Are there any amendments? Question, okay, fine, yeah, okay. All right.
Hi, the question is...
Can you stand up, please? Can I remind members, when you want to speak, please stand up, yeah?
Yeah. My question would be to Councillor Franks is, I hear all you say, and we recognise the difficulty of beggars and what they do to the town. Where do we draw the line with people who are professional beggars who come in and won't take any help? there's another second cohort of people who are not prepared to help. You know, we provide homelessness service, but if somebody refuses to go, how do you make them go to these wonderful charities that you allude to?
I'm quite happy to answer that question, Mr. Mayor. The motion calls for a coordinated action between the council and the other agencies that are available, and clearly with the professional beggars that the councillor refers to, the appropriate agency would be the police, I would suggest.
Councillor Chapman, is there the question? No, okay, thank you. Anybody else with a question?
Yes, I've got a supplementary question to that.
Yeah, it has to be a question, okay?
Yeah, it's a question.
Yeah.
So the question you've already just said about that, what happens when the police arrest them for 16 weeks and they come back again? We're back to square one again, which you've already pointed out.
That's a fact, not a question, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Are there any amendments? Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Chapman?
Firstly, why did this motion come now? I suppose it's been boiling for some time. But anybody that did any door knocking at all in the Southall by-election will know, as well as speak to their friends, this is just really Christian. As lots of people know, maybe they don't, I've lived in Luton all my life. And I would say this is probably the biggest threat to the future of how our town develops, as anything that's happened to this town in the last 30, 40, 50 years. And why do I say that? I say that because at the end of the day, the rejuvenation of the town centre is really going to depend on private investment. The council has done a very good job, the officers working like hell to try and get every grant they can, every bit of investment they can to try and rejuvenate the town centre. But we all know, in the end, that won't be enough. And also, we also know that that is a more medium to long-term goal. The problem is that almost by the week, people say to me, it's getting worse. It's getting worse. It is almost, without being over-dramatic, like a war footing, in terms of this is a problem that is on our doorstep now, happening now, week by week. More and more people are opting out of what should be the heart of our town. It's shocking what is actually happening. Now, what we're saying is, for all the hard work that people are doing, all of the, the bid, the town centre bid, all of those different groups, whatever they're doing, it ain't working. It's not actually working. You only have to speak to people, their experience of being on every junction in the town and beggars coming along and begging from them, of what they see of people drinking in the town centre, of lack of enforcement. It just isn't working. And if we don't support this, we're saying to the people looking, what can we do? It's somebody else's fault. We don't take responsibility for it. What this motion says is that if we're going to get private investors to invest to get this vision for the town, we have to stop it being a place people don't even want to come to. If any private developer were to walk down George Street now, in the day, they would run a mile. They would absolutely run a mile by what they saw. Because any high-quality developer is going to say, no way. So it is our responsibility to do the basics, is to make the environment adequate for people to want to even think about developing here. And that's what this calls on. And so in saying having a coordinated campaign, we are saying that this council should put together a very broad meeting, probably reporting to almost every council meeting what the issues are. And if we don't know the answers, we find them out not in 3 or 4 years' time, but now. Who's the best council at stopping beggars? Who's the best council at getting the homeless off the street? Whatever. And then we actually have a plan that every single councillor in this authority, whatever party they're in, can say to anybody that tells them, this is what they're doing, this is where it should be, this is how we got from A to B, this is how we're going to overcome it. Now, you may think this is pie in the sky, but all I'll tell you now is if something like this doesn't happen, you can tell where this town's going to go. Because, I mean, to be honest, in the last 2-3 years, we really, really can see a drop-off. And it's getting worse and worse. And we can see, I mean, you only have to look at the Arndale. Who is it really attracting now? You know, only people that are looking for low investment, whatever. Now, the sort of people that we need to put the master plan in place aren't those sorts of people. So they've got to walk down George Street and think, this is clean, this is pleasant, this is a nice environment. They've got to be able to drive in and not see cars being stopped by beggars regularly. Now, this doesn't say we've got the answers, and I can understand you could say to us in opposition, oh, it's all very well for you to raise this, blah, blah, blah. This issue is such a big issue, it's not really just a controlling party issue. It's a whole town issue. It's about the voluntary groups. It's about better coordination. I know we're trying to do it, but it ain't working. And that's why this motion is here. And that's why what we're really calling for is something to happen almost as an emergency action to show the people of Luton that we are addressing this issue as they are talking about it to us all the time. Thank you.
Sir Abbas.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Abid. Thank you, Javed. Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Thank you for the motion, Councillor Franks. It is important that we highlight the positive progress that we are making in respect of Luton Town Centre. Going forward, there is a lot of optimistic about, and while there are ongoing concerns about ASB, we will continue to work with our partners to reduce this over the coming months. I will talk more about this in a moment. It would be noted that our exciting and ambitious town centre master plan has received cross-party support and includes short, medium and long-term developments. Over the last few months, we have already seen some fantastic achievements in the town centre, including securing more than £950,000 from the European Regional Development Fund to opening up the River Lee and add more green space to our town centre, being one of the handful of local authorities in the eastern region to be successfully in bidding for the £20 million of the levelling up funding. This will go towards a multi-purpose development where Bute Street Car Park currently sits, including 372 homes, new community, retail, business space, an auditorium and a cycle club, providing extra cleaning, additional greenery, new public works of art and a range of events to liven up the town centre are on the way thanks to the £264,000 received as part of the Welcome Fund. We are talking to a number of landowners and stakeholders about bringing forward other developments on various key sites. We have secured funding from the Partnership for People and Place to create a new town centre strategic board to work across the town centre on a range of initiatives, including antisocial behaviour. Some aspects of our town centre cannot be achieved overnight, but the achievements I have outlined above show our plans are credible and sets the platform for further investment and development. Street drinking and begging are complex social issues which require a comprehensive and a joined-up approach from services across our town. We appreciate that we still have work to do in this difficult and sensitive area. We continue to work extremely hard and with our partners in the police, business involvement district being the Luton bid, and the third sector organisations to tackle antisocial behaviour in our town centre. Here are some examples of things we are doing. The council and the police have co-located the town centre policing team and a neighbourhood enforcement team to enable a more joined-up approach in the town centre issues. Since this co-location has taken place, we have extended the town centre public space protection order for further 3 years and extended the zone it covers. This has resulted in us undertaking a number of actions to tackle antisocial behaviour in the town centre. This approach has allowed greater sharing of information and intelligence, which has led to the introduction of 12 court orders against individuals who are repeatedly engaging in antisocial behaviour and has effectively banned those individuals from carrying out antisocial behaviour in the town centre. The council now has 2 dedicated town centre net officers. In the previous 18 months, we have used powers to enforce the PSPO on 1,517 occasions, issued 294 fixed penalty notices and community protection notices, including 100 fixed penalty notices for begging, carried out more than 1,000 early interventions with individuals known to have a history of causing antisocial behaviour or criminal offences within the town centre to deter that behaviour before it occurs. Removed 25 vehicles which have been connected to antisocial behaviour, including drug taking. Submitted 61 intelligence reports regarding to exploitation and criminality. In addition, officers have regularly signposted individuals to support and care services and participate in the Town Centre Intervention Group, TIG. This is a multi-agency group which offers a confidential risk assessment conference approach and identifies key individuals engaging in street culture, drinking, begging, rough sleeping, and associated antisocial behaviour, and works to provide appropriate interventions in terms of evidence gathering, provisions to support services and enforcement and as appropriate. As you can see, there is a significant work taking place through the Community Safety Partnership and the Emerging Town Centre Strategic Board. We will be reviewing and strengthening our approach to the antisocial behaviour and the street culture in the town centre in the coming months. Thanks to the comprehensive offer from our voluntary sector partners, we would like to reassure members that there is no need for anybody to beg for accommodation or food in Luton. The Big Change scheme, launched with more than 20 other organisations, offers residents and guests to our town an alternative way to donate and support people to build a life away from the street. In relation to people visiting the town centre, we are pleased to see the return of the events, including half a marathon, 10K, brings back memories, and a fantastic Diwali in Luton, which initial numbers suggest they have had their most successful year to date. The town centre light switch on, lighting up Luton, will return on Saturday the 27th of November in partnership with the Mile, the Luton bid. Footfall numbers in the town centre in the town continue to rise, heading into a crucial Christmas period, and have been helped by the opening of Lidl and the VFM in the mall, and the Gravity Active Entertainment in the Galaxy Centre. As you can see, there is now a lot of momentum to improve the look and the feel of the Luton Town Centre. It is a core objective of our 2040 vision, and I encourage all members of the council to get behind it.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand what's been said tonight and agree with a lot of what Councillor Abbas has said about what is going to happen in the future. But the problem is that we've got is what's happening now. And I walk through the town centre every day. And it was this afternoon, I think I was approached as I came up from Park Street to the town hall. There were 6 people asking for money. And it's been stated now that they're not, most of them aren't homeless. And I know 2 or 3 of them. 2 of them are in Guildford Hall, in Guildford Street, and 1 is in the EasyJet Hotel. And I says, why are you begging? You've got 3 meals a day in Guildford Hall, and accommodation for the evening, I said I'd just like a little bit of extra money on the side. That was the excuse. There's no excuse whatsoever to beg in this town centre. I've criticised it in the past. It looks derelict, unloved, certainly not attractive to anyone, but it has declined in the last few years. I hope what this does tonight, us talking about it, improves the situation of enforcement to people that they know have accommodation to move them on. As Councillor Frank said, fining them's no good. They haven't got any money in the first place. They'll just have to beg to pay the fine. So it's just to move them on, tidy up the town centre, make it a little bit more attractive, because it will change over time with the bid money, and Power Court, with the Football Club Associated Development, will radically change the town centre. But I think we've got to make a little bit of effort now to stop it being the antisocial behaviour. And I've seen drug dealing going on in Chapel Street, street drinking going on in Chapel Street. It's that little bit of extra effort to enforce what's currently going on and look forward to the future of the town centre. But let's deal with it now.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank Councillor Franks for forwarding this motion, and I think, yes, there is a problem, and that needs to be resolved. However, we need to understand why people are begging. It's 11 years or 13 years of austerity. It's the coalition government, the Lib Dems and the Tories started that journey, which has led people on the streets. And we are left to pick up those pieces. We have made every effort, making sure that no one has a reason to beg or to sleep on the streets. We have Noah, which has adequate shelter. We have Food Bank. We have Discover Islam. We have churches. We have mosques, all giving food, hot meals to these people. They also qualify for benefits. They get benefits. We ensured that we have policy to prioritize and ensure they are housed first. There is no reason they do get a pillow and they do get food. But yes, what can we do? What powers does the council have? We have got a coordinated policy and team, drug and alcohol, as well as our officers which are out there trying to understand the issues and problem and wrap around those services. And we have housed a lot of people, and a lot of people have even, got jobs. Only last week we had a job fair. We've created over 700 jobs. If they want to work, there is a job where they can earn a good living. But you are right, some choose not to, and something has to be done. We have to hold our partners to account. It's the police which has legal powers to move them on. And as far as investment is concerned, and thank you for appreciating our work and the office's work, that £2 billion of inward investment, you can see there's buildings going around everywhere in town, which is creating opportunities for our people in Luton. And just before COVID, 2017, 2018, Luton was a place, second most popular place to invest. That's why we were getting that investment in Luton and continue to do so. Our master plan of Luton and our future plans, people with money and those investors do have confidence, because Luton is predicted to be the 11th most fastest growing economy. Yes, it will take time. And yes, this is creating a bad perception, but let us ensure our members and our public that we will do everything that we can to ensure that no one's sleeping rough. But we have to, at the same time, hold our partners to account to ensure for those people who are abusing our system and abusing our generosity, because people in Luton like giving. And that's why people are coming from outside our town, from Bedford, from London and other places, to come and beg. And there is organised crime, and we have to deal with it. And I agree that that action needs to be taken now. Thank you.
Councillor Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think some of it my colleagues already said there, but I think it is around, I would agree that we need to work with our partners and hold them to account in terms of working with them and the actions that they can take and we cannot take. But I would emphasise the fact that the residents of Luton also need to be educated around not giving to the beggars, because this just increases and encourages those that know that we are a giving town and like to hand out. And I think some of that is around education, speaking to some of my officers around mental health and drug and alcohol. It has come out that the town gives out and is generous, and that is where we need to work with our residents to say that we need to stop giving to those that are begging out on the street. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Roach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first thing I really want to say is that about a year or so, a couple of years ago, I went out with Noah, and you have to go early morning, and I went out with them and had a good conversation and walked around the town. No one in Luton, it should be homeless unless they want to be. And what I mean by that, there are people who have capacity who choose to sleep on the streets. They choose to. There's nothing they can do unless they can prove that that person doesn't have capacity, and they get a doctor out and section the person for medical attention. But the one thing that came through time and time again is please do not give them, tell the public not to give them money. And that's a simple thing we can do. The education of not be giving money, because if they're not earning money, I'm sure they won't be standing there. You know, and that's the things come through from now. My partner works for Key Stage Housing. She works at Cherrywood. They're all housed, that's been said here tonight. They have universal credit, they get fed, they get support. They do not need to beg, they're begging for other reasons. And that's the bit we need to clamp down on. But certainly we need to get that education out firstly about not giving money to our beggars on the streets of Luton, and let's see where that goes. That's a simple thing we can do, I think. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Yeah, Councillor Javed.
Hi, thank you, Mayor, Mr. Mayor. I welcome your comments, Councillor Chapman. It's definitely not pie and square in the sky, and I certainly had that conversation with, and I know how it's driving out people. So, in essence, I guess we think we're doing as much as we can. If you're proposing that we do a task and finish group to look at it and what more could we do, I think that's a positive step. And if that's what this motion is calling for, then let's do a cross-party, because I don't think anybody wants the beggars putting people off from the town. We don't want the town, we want it to be a place, welcoming place, not a place that puts you off here because of the beggars and social behaviour. And if that's what it takes is a task and finish group to review it and what more could be done, then let's do it.
Any other member wish to speak before I call Councillor Shaw? Then you won't be able to say, nobody will be able to speak. So if any other member wish to speak on this subject, your last chance. No? Councillor Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope the Labour crew can support what's down here. Maybe from some of the different, I've got probably different reasons than the leader of the Liberals when he moved it. Anyone that's got a good memory, go back to September 2013. When the government, in its wisdom, I'll go into what he said in this weekend's papers this year, decided to impose the most drastic cuts what we'd ever seen in this country to people in receipt of welfare benefits when they capped the universal credit in this area to £20,000, London £24,000. They capped it so people couldn't afford the accommodation. If you're under 25, you only got benefit to share with someone else, if you were sharing with someone else. Move on from that, move on completely. The reason, the reason we should support this is what Councillor Franks asked for. The partnership is already in place. It's called the Luton Homeless Partnership. One of the reasons the government's recognised we've done so well with street homeless is because of the Luton Homeless Partnership, which was set up in 2019. The members of the partnership are Mary Seacole, Noah, Signpost Squared, YMCA resolutions, East London Foundation Trust to help us out with the mental health problems, Luton Borough Council, Directions of Bedfordshire, Penrose, Citizens Advice, Homeless Link, Groundswell. Do not blame homeless people for the begging in Luton Town Centre. Because if anybody requires accommodation in this town for the last 2 years, they've been able to get it. It might be supported accommodation, it might be shared accommodation, but they've been able to get it. But on top of that, one of the things what the Luton Homeless Partnership did do was put into place a thing called Big Change in Luton. Don't ever notice the Starbucks, whatever it is, opposite the station, and at the advice centre in the Mall, you can go there and just by tapping your card, you can give money to the homeless in the town. So don't give it to the street beggars, because they're professionals, they're after what they want. And since it started at the end of 2019, Big Change has raised £8,000, just over £8,000 with people's donations just on those 2 tapping points. So it shows you how generous the people of Luton are. But every single penny what's spent on those tapping points, what's given on, is spent on providing furniture for people who are moving into accommodation where they haven't got any, providing help, getting all the stuff they do need, linen and that kind of stuff. So if people stop giving to the street beggars and actually went to those 2 tapping points, and the Homeless Partnership is now being taken over by Tim at Signpost. He's now the chair of it this year, and they're going to push for more tapping points around the town. The more what's given to them, the more money will go directly to the people what have been moved into temporary accommodation in the town and will be able to help more homeless people. I agree with most what's down here, but you're wrong that that partnership's not there. I do believe we've got professional beggars in Luton. I do believe that the police should take action against professional beggars. But don't blame the homeless for something what's not their fault, what they're not doing. What you've got is some professionals. There's one comes on from Harpenden on the train every morning, about 11 o'clock. If you're coming back from London, you can see him, because it's such a good place to come begging in, because the Luton people are so generous. So anybody at all, what you see, or anyone asks you, please go to either one of those pay points. All you got to do is tap your card, put in how much you want to give, end the story, and that money is going directly to help all the homeless groups in the town. This winter, do not be fooled. From last week, we started taking any people what were street homeless because of the cold weather into temporary accommodation. And those people, so through the winter fuel payments and through the winter crisis payments, we've managed to find accommodation for the winter, but once it gets down below a certain temperature for anyone who wants it. We had a problem, because a lot of them are going into hotels. But we got 11 or 12 what have been so bad in the hotels during the pandemic, because every one of them had a bed to go to and a place to go to, that the hotels have refused to take them. They signed up. So, but even for them, for the winter, we managed to get an organisation what has rented some property, what they're going to staff and manage, so even the worst of the worst will have somewhere to go in this town this winter. So there's going to be absolutely no one homeless. Everyone's going to get the benefits sorted out the minute they go in there. So if anyone comes up to you on the streets and says, I need some money for the night hostel, they don't. Because we're putting them in a lot longer accommodation. Instead of just a 3 or 4 nights when it's cold, they're going in for a lot longer. They don't need it. The accommodation is covered. Anyone that says, I need to get somewhere to go, they don't. Anyone who wants somewhere to go, they've got somewhere to go. So these people, two of them outside McDonald's today in the town centre, one of them came up to me, of all people, who said, I need £2.50 to get in the night hostel tonight. I said, bugger off. All you've got to do is fill the form in when you get there, and your housing benefit is sorted out automatically. But you came, £2.50, you said they needed it, can I have it? I agree with what you got down here. Don't blame the homeless. The partnership is already in place. Strengthen that partnership. And like the generous people of Luton have done already, give £8,000 through the Just Giving points. Anyone that says anything to you, tell them to go to those Just Giving points, because that guarantees that money will go direct to the needs of the people we put into temporary accommodation. But all of this can be traced back to that fateful day in September. How many of you read the weekend papers. I am astounded, and I'm never going. First time I'll admit I've read it. What was in the Mail this weekend? That the Chief Secretary to the Treasury has come out and said that the cuts, even though they were severe to the people what received them, it only saved £295 million. It was done for a political reason because the polling clerks told them it polled well nationally when they cut the benefits to the worst off in the country. And if you read this weekend's Daily Mail, that's the reason they did it. £295 million in a government budget is next to nothing. Who's to blame for it? The Tories we know, but the Liberals enabled it to happen by being in coalition. But they stand here now pretending none of that happened. That's why put a motion to the council asking the government to increase universal credit to pre-2013 levels, and you'll get a lot more support off me. Put that, and I think everyone in this council chamber would support you. But you won't do that, because that would be too much political for you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, the motion is before the council. Members will be asked to cast their vote individually.
Councillor Abid. Councillor Ahmed.
For.
Councillor A. Ali.
For.
Councillor U. Ali.
For.
Councillor Begum.
For.
Councillor D. Chapman.
For.
Councillor P. Chapman.
For.
Councillor Chowdhury.
For.
Councillor Donnellan.
For.
Councillor Franks.
For.
Councillor Bridgen.
For.
Councillor Franks.
Can I get to vote twice?
Yeah. Councillor A. Hussein.
For.
Councillor J. Hussein.
For.
Councillor J.I. Hussein.
For.
Councillor M. Hussein.
For.
Councillor S. Hussein.
For.
Councillor Javid.
For.
Councillor Keynes. Councillor Khan. Councillor Cursed.
For.
Councillor Lovell. Councillor Malcolm.
For.
Councillor K. Malik. Councillor T. Malik.
For.
Councillor Masood.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Moles.
For.
Councillor Moore.
For.
Councillor Nichols.
For.
Councillor Pedersen.
For.
Councillor Petts. Councillor Roche.
For.
Councillor S. Salim.
For.
Councillor T. Salim.
For.
Councillor Shaw.
For reluctantly.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor Skeppelhorn.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Underwood.
For.
Councillor Wynne.
For.
Councillor Young.
For.
Yeah, the motion was carried unanimous. Thank you. Yes, what was that?
Can I just ask that, is it possible that we can get some information regarding the system where people can actually donate rather than give money to beggars? Could it be circulated in some way to the general public?
Yes, I think with that will be...
No problem. We'll get it out. Tim from Signpost, the chair of the local partnership only stays in place 2 years. Matthew Bushell has stepped down. Tim has taken over in the stand. They had the election next week. I'll speak to him. But download for homelessness, there's an app called Street Link. So if you see anyone homeless, you just tap on that link. They'll get in touch with Noah Signpost or Mary Seacole. They get their people down there very quick. It's free to download. Just download it. Street Link, it's called.
Yes, but do the general public know about it? That's what I'm trying to say. Well, I don't do Facebook or anything like that, so I didn't know about it.
Yeah, okay, Tom.
Okay, just to make sure that it is out there in the public.
Chief.
So moving on to the next item of business, and just to explain to the members of the public, members of the council who have got a financial interest because they are pensioners or get a or may in the future get a pension from the Pensions Trust. I'm just about to ask to leave, so just when you see the exodus from the chamber, that's why. In addition to the members who declared an interest earlier, I've had an additional interest lodged by Councillor J. Hussain, and obviously Councillor Nichols has joined us, and Councillor Nichols will also need to leave because she is a member of the Bedfordshire Pensions Board. With that, I would now ask all of the members who have disclosed an interest in the following item as recipients of the local government pension, all members of the local pension bodies, to please leave the chamber. And if any other members want to disclose an interest, please do so now. And we'll now hand over to the Deputy Mayor to take the next item of business.
I'm just going to wait here till everyone leaves. So the next item is the matter of urgent business, inviting Council to move a resolution regarding fossil fuel investment. Can you hear me? The next item is the matter of urgent business, inviting Council to move the resolution regarding fossil fuel investment. I call upon Councillor Aslam Khan to move the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion is very, very important, not just for us, but our environment and human life. The post-industrial revolution, burning fossil fuels has generated most of the energy to propel our cars, our business, and keep the lights in our houses. Even today, oil, coal, gas provides about 80% of our energy needs, and we are paying the price for it. Using fossil fuels for our energy has an enormous toll on our human, animal health, and the environment. From air and water pollution to global warming, that's beyond all the negative impacts of petroleum-based products such as plastic and chemicals. Abundance of heat-trapping green gases in the atmosphere once again has reached a new record in 2020. Rise in temperature is leading to extreme change in weather that is threatening our human and animal life, our food and water security, as well as our socio-economic development. 79% of disasters in recent times worldwide involved weather, water, and climate-related hazards. These disasters accounted for 56% of deaths and 75% of economic loss. Limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees would require far-reaching and unprecedented change to all aspects of our society. Global banks not only continue to finance the fossil fuels industry, but they are providing it with more money than ever before. In 2019, the fossil fuel industry extraction plants received 40% more financing compared to 2018. Our response to climate change must prioritize and optimize health and equity. We have a responsibility to make a change and speed up that journey to alternative source of energy. Renewable energy is cleaner, greener, safer, and will create more jobs than fossil fuel industry. It can be potentially even more profitable. We, the Labour Party, demand an end to all investment in fossil fuel projects and call upon the government to immediately pause in fossil fuel investment overseas. engage with fossil fuel companies to commit to keeping vast majority of their oil, gas, coal and stocks in the ground. Stop exploring for more reserves and rapidly transition to become renewable energy companies. We need to show leadership on climate change emergency and ensure our pension funds are not funding climate disaster. As part of our commitment to reducing impact on the planet and ensuring our town is carbon neutral by 2040, we are asking for cross-party support for the Council to commit to and to call upon the Bedfordshire Pension Fund to divest from fossil fuels. Immediately freeze any investment in the top 200 publicly traded fossil fuel companies. Actively seek to invest in companies that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and minimize or mitigate climate risk. And undertake an assessment of its investment portfolio with a view to disinvest in institutions which are coal, oil and gas companies by 2023. Additionally, Mr. Mayor, Luton Council to review its treasury management strategy to ensure that future direct investment in oil, coal and gas companies, bringing revised strategy to the budget full council. Recognizing that fossil fuel investment should be considered as part of council's carbon footprint, and that ensuring that our pension funds make ethical investment and is an important step to reduce our impact on our community and the planet. And I hope with that little amendment of that date 2023 that the amended motion is acceptable to our second. Thank you very much.
Is the resolution seconded?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very, very happy, of course, to accept the amendment, no problem at all. I think the first thing I should say is I'm really very pleased to have been involved in the decision to bring this resolution to the committee, to the council, and was happy to agree to Hazel's suggestion, actually, that I second it. That's where the suggestion came from. There's no need to reserve my right because I'm pretty sure this is going to be unanimously accepted, at least I certainly hope it is. There is only one other little gap, actually, which I'm sure Councillor Khan is going to be able to fill by giving us an assurance that once the resolution has been passed, it will be forwarded first to the administrators of the pension scheme, then to the leader of Central Beds and to the Mayor of Bedford with a request that they pass something similar. I've no doubt that I accept your nod. Thank you very much. We all understand why it's so important to move to using more environment-friendly sources of energy. No secrets there. We understand why we need to make investment in, production of, and domestic and industrial use of coal, gas and oil more difficult. Why fossil fuel companies need to be pushed to diversify their businesses and to find profitable alternative ventures. But I want to look for a moment at why our young people are so angry about the slowness, or as they often perceive it, lack of effective action by governments. I was never, in my life, more proud of Luton's young people than when a while ago we saw high school students' Friday afternoon protests in the town centre. Protests that with full support of their parents and their teachers. Really cheered me, that did. There does need to be serious, urgent international action to reduce global warming, and if it's not forthcoming, then I will probably have long departed this world before the brutal, violent wars over supplies of fresh water and over land with which to provide homes and food, as whole countries like the Maldives and Bangladesh disappear under the rising seas. I will not be here to see the scramble of tens of millions of refugees looking for safety, nor will I see the brutal resistance of governments refusing would-be immigrants from the disappearing lands. I won't be here to see that. It's likely I'll be long gone before all this happens, so it'll be today's children and today's grandchildren who will have to face it. No wonder they are angry. No wonder they're using disruptive actions to protest. They've tried non-disruptive actions and they've failed to provoke the action required. If ever there was a time for non-violent action, it is now. I am proud to second the resolution and ask you to vote for it unanimously.
Are there any questions? Are there any amendments?
Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Does any member wish to speak to the resolution?
I agree with everything David said, and it really sticks when I have to say that. But he's right on this one. The council, in its wisdom, and it's been cross-party, I've got to say that, with all the cladding, we're changing the fuel to green fuel at the depot, encouraging the buses to go for the low-carbon fuels. It's all been cross-party. I hope this can be cross-party. Everyone in the council supports it tonight. We've done well so far. It'd be a bit of a contradiction if we're spending £17 million this year, or £18 million on external cladding and external render and everything else. And next year in the HRA, I'll tell you now, you're going to see hundreds of thousands of pounds put in for electric charging points on the council estates and everything else. But what a contradiction in terms if we didn't do something about the investment of the pension fund, invested in the very industries what are causing us the problems anyway. So I hope everyone in the council can support this and we can go forward like we have been on a lot of the climate change stuff so far as a united council. That would be a nice thing to see tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Ammon.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor, last week, the UN warned that the world is currently on track of a catastrophic 2.7 degree rise in global temperature. Unless we drastically cut greenhouse gas emissions, so it's vital this happens quickly. There is evidence that funds which have divested perform as well, if not better, than ones still invested in fossil fuels. We have a responsibility to show our leadership on the climate emergency and ensure that our pensions are not funding climate disaster. Let us get our house in order and be one of the first council to align our pension investment with a green and prosperous zero carbon future that helps to contain global heating to below 1.5. Therefore, I wholeheartedly support this motion and urge my members, please support this motion, save our planet and save our future of generation. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Any other member wants to speak? O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. As a young person, I was really happy to see this resolution be proposed. I know that we all need to do a bit more to fight climate change individually and collectively. I know that my peers and young people around Luton will be very grateful if we do all vote for this, and they'll be happy to see that Luton Borough Council is taking the lead in fossil fuel divestment, and I hope that our neighbouring councils can also follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. While I understand that this council only has an influence over the Bedfordshire Pension Fund, we could try and influence other council pension funds and pension funds in general to get behind this disinvestment in fossil fuels. Bedfordshire pension fund is probably one of the smallest in the country, but at least this is something. But I've got a not yet 5-year-old granddaughter who I'd like to be able to know will have a future. So if there's anything that this council can do to influence other local government pension funds and wider pension funds, then I'd like us to try and do that as well. Thank you.
Ross. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I think we can influence it tonight by accepting this motion, in all fairness. I think that will influence it. Councillor Frank, you're perfectly right. I mean, I'm not going to be around either, in all fairness, so we owe this to our young people who I've met in Luton as well, and they're very concerned about climate change. So we do actually young people. It is a contradiction of terms when we're trying to do climate change and our pension fund is being invested in the whole point where it's causing the concern. So I think we will influence it by accepting this motion tonight, and I think that will have the influence, hopefully, in the other pension funds you mentioned. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Anyone else? The resolution is before the council. Member will be asked to cast their vote individually.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Abid?
For.
Councillor Ahmed?
For.
Councillor A. Ali?
For.
Councillor U. Ali?
For.
Councillor Begum?
For.
Councillor Bridgen? For. Councillor P. Chapman?
For.
Councillor Chowdhury?
For.
Councillor Donnellan?
For.
Councillor Franks?
For.
Councillor A. Hussain?
For.
Councillor J. I. Hussain? For. Councillor S. Hussain?
For.
Councillor Javid?
For.
Councillor Keynes? Councillor Khan?
For.
Councillor Cursed?
For.
Councillor Lovell?
For.
Councillor Malcolm?
For.
Councillor K. Malik?
For.
Councillor T. Malik?
For.
Councillor Masood?
For.
Councillor Mead?
For.
Councillor Moore? For. Councillor Pedersen?
For.
Councillor Petts?
For.
Councillor Roche?
For.
Councillor S. Salim?
For.
Councillor T. Salim? For. Councillor Shaw?
For.
Councillor Skeppelhorn? For. Councillor Taylor?
For.
Councillor Underwood? For. Councillor Wynne?
For.
Councillor Young?
For.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, Mr Deputy Mayor.
The resolution is carried. That concludes the business for this meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Please observe social distancing requires one.